Oh, hi there. Today I wanted to make a video about Arnold Schwarzenegger and him getting drop kicked from behind while he was at a athletic competition in South Africa. Um, okay, first of all, I think Arnold took it very well. The individual that did this, oh, he's in a world of hurt. Like, it doesn't matter how nice a guy Arnold Schwarzenegger is, and he is a nice guy. The fact of the matter is, with his celebrity status, that, Arnold say is going to obviously, have a big influence on what happens to this individual. Some people believe he was mentally ill, and I would agree with that. He was shouting something about wanting a Lamborghini, and I think he said something about going to California or something like that. Um, yeah, he's in a world of hurt. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The only there are many questions, and one of them being, uh, how did this happen, and is it possible it was allowed to happen? If you may have noticed, Arnold Schwarzenegger had a few bodyguards, and they were bigger, bulkier, more athletically gifted than Arnold Schwarzenegger was when he was a younger man. These guys, his bodyguards, look like they could beat the shit out of Arnold Schwarzenegger if, they went into like a time warp and were at the same place at the same time as Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was at his peak. And they didn't, I mean, this guy came out of nowhere, came quickly, and, bodyguards do make mistakes. But I think someone allowed it to happen and it was timed and it had a motive to it. Obviously, it wasn't an assassination attempt. It wasn't, the guy with Ronald Reagan or anything like that. But, a push. And the individual, he was a black man. The thing is, in a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger's earlier movies, now that he's an old man, I'm talking about his earlier movies, he quite often he's working with black people, and quite often he's fought them. And Arnold Schwarzenegger actually kind of won almost every fight he had against a black individual or competition or whatever in the movies. So him getting sideswiped by a black guy that may have had political motivation in South Africa as kind of a message that Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't always win against the black man. I'm fairly familiar with most of Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies, but I'm not familiar with all of them. Perhaps maybe a black man did get the edge on him in one of them. I don't know, but most of the times he's won. And in this particular instance, this individual, came at him from behind, drop kicked him. The kick itself, that definitely would have jostled anyone. You're not expecting it. It's going to jostle you, and it clearly did for Arnold, him being 70 plus years of age and not seeing it coming. But any permanent damage from that? Absolutely not. Unless it hit him right on the spine or something, I suppose. But he didn't indicate anything like that. I mean, he did just have surgery, so I mean that was a year or two ago, so that's something to consider as well. Um, However, he didn't hit his head falling forward or anything like that. You see him getting up and walking away, and he seems okay, which is good. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great guy, real dirty thing for someone to do. But people take propaganda very seriously. And movies, mainstream, Hollywood, B movies, even, and all that kind of stuff, that's all part of the propaganda machine. And Arnold Schwarzenegger as an individual who was presented as always being more athletically gifted than his black co-stars. It could have been a politically motivated attack, and that might explain why it made the news in the first place. Like realistically, like if it made the rounds in South Africa, how many of us here in Canada are going to hear about it? Like really, how many people here in Canada are going to hear about it if in South America, not in South America, South Africa, if something like that happens and they don't broadcast it on television over here and it doesn't get presented on Twitter? Nobody's going to know. It's so far away, that continent. Hardly anybody who lives here ever travels there. Probably for good reason. I don't want to get fucking malaria. How about that for a reason? Among, the probably thousands of other reasons. Uh, yeah, and like Arnold had, it was probably like 4 or 5, like bodyguards, like one punch from any of those guys, and it would send your arm flying, or your head would explode or something like that. They were that muscular and that big, and it was like they let that guy jump up and kick Arnold Schwarzenegger in the back like that. I don't know. Well, I think some dirty money was probably around. I mean, let's face it, he was an American politician. He's Hollywood status and all that sort of stuff. This is South Africa we're talking about. It's easy for us in the West to go, oh no, it was some nutter. It was a one-off. It didn't mean anything. Sure, but are you really going to dismiss that and say there's no possibility it could be anything else? I think that's an incredibly naive mainstream opinion to have, is to always assume it's the simplest answer. Lone Nutter had the opportunity and kicked Arnold. And that's the end of the story. Well, not for the guy who did it, who knows, probably tortured or something like that. Not that, I don't know how offended Arnold would be. I mean, his post was fairly, on Twitter was fairly benign. But, a post on Twitter talking about it and how he really thinks or feels, those can be completely different things. And let's not forget, this is South Africa, where people, get murdered all the damn time. Um, so, yeah, who knows? Uh, from what I can tell, there's very little information about this, and next week it'll go into the forgotten pages of the newsreel, which happens to a lot of stories. And I enjoy making videos like this, not because I enjoyed what happened, but because it's like a journal for me, and it helps me remember certain instances of things that have happened in the past, even if I don't watch the video again afterwards. Um, and, it's the same thing with S.J. Harris. Does anyone remember her? I remember her, and that's because I made a video about it. And that was sad too. And that was completely different, but, it was, in the realm of conspiracy type thought. And, all that sort of stuff isn't so far-fetched. Is it really that far-fetched? That money could have been handed over so that somebody could try to humiliate Arnold Schwarzenegger during his live Snapchat, and therefore get him broadcasted on mainstream television. Is that really that far-fetched? It's a possibility. Think about it, or don't think about it, or fuck off. One of the two, or three. You know what I mean. Anyway, I'll talk to you people later. Have a good one.